resumes based on keywords. So if you're applying online, you need to fill your resume with the keywords that are in the job description. Use that job description to help you tailor that resume every single time so that you can make sure that your resume will be seen by them. And then always follow up with somebody that you might know within there and tell them that you applied online. Here's a hard copy. That way somebody in there will
Know the department you're looking into. Unless you're applying for a job in HR, try to avoid HR. Because an HR manager is not going to understand what it takes to be in another department. They're just not going to know. So if you're applying for an advertising position, a creative director position, go through their company website and find the people who are doing the things that you want to do. Because if you can find somebody who, maybe it's not the exact person, but if they're in that world, if they're in that sphere, they can probably point you in the right direction. Just my general rule of thumb is, unless I'm talking benefits, salary, something that has a legal implication, I avoid HR. Because they're generally just not as helpful as someone in a department.
I would just say to remember other types of networking that you could do. I mean, LinkedIn would be a really valuable source because on LinkedIn you can search by the company and find out who the HR person is, who the department manager is for that department, link up with them that way. And obviously it's a very professional site, it's got your resume built into it, so they can kind of see it. Might be a way to connect with them. And then some of the other ways I talked about too, just networking with professional associations in the area that they might participate in, chambers of commerce, just to be able to meet them in a different way. Because I'm a big believer that if you can like put a face to a name, that like it makes your application and that stack of applications stand out in some way. And so to be able to do that just by interacting with them either online, through LinkedIn, or networking events through professional organizations would be a way to not just have to go to the computer online.
And also, that's the power of LinkedIn. So if anyone in here is not on LinkedIn, you have homework. What's the homework? Get LinkedIn. And in some cases, get LinkedIn or get left out. Because I went to a conference last year and the party stood up and said, and they're saying, what do you look for in candidates? I said, well, I'll get the resume. And then what do? I go to LinkedIn. If the person's not on LinkedIn, they don't exist. I said, wow, seriously? And to him, based on his niche industry, they take LinkedIn very seriously as far as you having a professional online web presence. So that's your marketing tool. And also, when you use LinkedIn, if you have a nice network of contacts, you can see who in your network works better, right? And there are parts of your network as well.
I think a lot of times with the bigger corporations that it is harder to find out names of executives and who to contact, or they usually don't give you a lot of methods to contact anybody. So obviously the networking is one way to do that. Another thing is that the big companies are ones that everybody wants to work at. You know, everybody might want to work at Apple. You know, everyone might want to work at Sony. So looking at other areas, like that might be like tier 1, top places that you want to apply to. And then you might have like tier 2, tier 3 of other places, because the really big corporations are to want you to have experience. If you look at a pool of applicants, they want to choose someone that's most qualified. And in order to become most qualified for some of the bigger companies, you have to get experience. And so looking at other options to gain experience. And in my personal opinion, anywhere that you can gain experience is of value to you. When you graduate college, you have no experience other than, you know, internships and things like that, which is also good. You want to gain experience any way that you can. So it might not be your ideal job, might not be your dream job, but it's a way for you to work on those skills and to gain additional skills to become more valuable for somebody else.
And another word of advice also, if you're waiting, you get that generic response email, you know, we've received your resume, we'll be contacting you, there's a high number of applicants, so be patient. Keep applying other places. Don't just wait for that response, because typically no news is bad news, and you don't want to sit on your butt for 2 weeks waiting to hear back from the company, and then you don't, so you're like, okay, nothing's happening. You want to have been putting your name out there still during that time when you were waiting. So it's like Catherine was saying, look at other backups as well. I mean, it's great to have those top tier goal companies, but you also need to think realistically. I mean, I graduated, I had lots of internship experience, and I was having no luck applying for the types of positions I wanted with my top companies, and I ended up taking part-time work and contract work, and from there, I worked my way up. I gained more experience, and then I was able to reach the full-time type of position that I was looking for with one of my target companies, organizations. So make sure you're still doing things in the meantime. It's great to have those goals, but you also do need to think realistically about the type of competition that they are seeing in their applicants. And if you can't get a hold of anybody at your target company to find out what are they looking for, see if you can find contacts at other similar companies, maybe companies in your region, it sounds like you're applying for technology companies, other technology companies that are based here. Talk with them, talk with those executives that you can find a name and ask them, because they're probably looking for a lot of the same qualities. So that's also going to give you an idea of what a hiring manager at that same type of organization will be looking for.
Part of it's going to depend on the industry. I obviously have two different ones, but the fine arts, the arts world is very, very different communication-wise than the education field. The education field has layers. An education system is almost like a government agency in that it just takes them a while to do anything. Whether it's get a package of paper or fill a job, it just takes a while. But the fine arts world, they're much more relaxed and they're much more casual in the way that they do things, which can be good, but it can be bad. The analogy that I typically use when I talk about communication is, it's actually something my grandfather taught me a long time ago. Imagine a file cabinet that has 4 drawers. You put your communication in, it's in the top drawer. There's a certain amount of time when it goes from drawer 1 to drawer 2. In theater, it's usually about a weekend. In education, it's an entire week. So that's know your industry. The goal is don't let your communication get to drawer 4. If you're in drawer 3, be there for a short amount of time as humanly possible. But you want to know your industry so that you know, okay, my weekend is over, my 3 days is over. If I'm applying for a theater gig, I need to contact them. If I'm applying for a teaching position, maybe that drawer 1 to drawer 2, I want to look at maybe the 7 to 10 day range. So know your industry, but kind of keep that analogy in mind. It's okay to go from 1 to 2. 2 to 3, start worrying. Don't ever get to drawer 4.
It's a fine line between following up and being obnoxious. So just, be aware of that. I think professionally, just understand they've got a lot of other things on their plate. If they don't respond to you that day or the next day, it's okay. Maybe giving it a week or 2 weeks for them to follow back up or just to review your application. If you're calling and leaving messages and they're not calling back, sometimes it's easier to shoot an email, because emails they get the answer from their phone, they can answer from wherever they are. You might have a better chance of